I will introduce you just for 1 minute, Ed, and then I will give you the floor. الحاصل البروفيسور إدوارد داونز على الدكتوراه من مدرسة نيو هاوس للاتصالات العامة بجامعة سيراكيوز الأمريكية، وعنوان الرسالة رسائل من الكونغرس الأمريكي، إطار مفاهيمي لفهم المسؤول الإعلامي بالكونغرس. يعمل حالياً أستاذاً مشاركاً بكلية الاتصال بجامعة بوسطن الأمريكية. عمل ل10 سنوات في برامج اتصالات في شتى أنحاء العاصمة واشنطن. ألف وشارك في تأليف العديد من البحوث، ويعد من أحدثها بحث عن النفوذ والسلطة في مجال إدارة مواقع الإنترنت. ويتباحث حالياً مع الناشرين لنشر كتابه الذي يحمل عنوان قصة صانعي السمعات في الكونغرس، وحائز على جائزة الرئيس ليندون جونسون لأفضل مستشار في عام 2005. Edward, you have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers, to my new friends and colleagues, and I'm reminded very much that we live in a global village, so I appreciate the opportunity to get here, and I thank you so much for the time and energy and good commitment that you've made to me. I look forward to working with you and helping you in any way that I can. So thank you so much for letting me at least join this part of the global village. I was thinking some time back about power and power relationships, and the thought came to me as I pondered this, that power permeates all relationships, interpersonal relationships, organizational, national, and international relationships. That was sort of the genesis of my thinking for the work that I put together. I then thought a little bit more, and I looked at some of the textbooks that the students use who are studying marketing or advertising or public relations, and inevitably there was a chapter in each that dealt with new media. So I decided what I would do would be to put together, to marry, to look at the nexus, the intersection of the intersection of power, new computer applications, and communication management. I teach public relations courses, and as a consequence of this, we're redefining the way that we practice, and we tell our students freely, we don't know where we're going to be 5 or 10 years from now. We only hope that we'll be in a good place. With that said, I've put together just about 8 various points that I'd like to share with you over just probably the next 8 minutes, and I would welcome you to contact me or to allow me to help you in any way that I can. And one more point of gratitude, I thank you for answering all my email notes back and forth. When we think about the concept of power, it's a wide and diverse concept, isn't it? And I didn't want to give a conceptual definition of the term, at least for this paper. And the reasoning, thank you, and the reasoning behind that was that I didn't want to limit power. And this is a very interesting study, and personally it was a challenge for me. So much of my work has involved quantitative measures or even some qualitative work that has much more strict parameters, and this was fairly wide-ranging. So forgive me if I'm repeating some things that you may already know, but let me offer some general suggestions. First, when we're talking about the process of theory and research, which is such an integral part of so many of our doctoral programs and perhaps some of the programs for the undergrads, when we think about that, research has changed because of this. We have online focus groups, we have message testing, 3-dimensional test mapping, hybrid surveys, online experiments, copy testing, web usability research, etc. So the concept of the research has empowered us, these new media, new technology have empowered us as researchers. Then we move to the concept of the audience, and certainly the audience is empowered as well. The audience has blogs, has brochureware, RSS feeds. And I was talking to a student the other day about her cell phone, and I said, do you have a cell phone? And she said, of course I have a cell phone. And I reflected back just 11 years to a paper I published in which cell phones were just coming to fruition. They just actually begun to diffuse. And as a consequence of that, it shows you how quickly we're changing. As we move now into issues such as social media, where we look at the power that Facebook or Twitter could certainly have. So in addition to empowering the research process, empowering the ability to look at audiences, two, and segment those audiences, number three is that the audiences themselves are redefined. Our general concept of encoder and decoder needs to be revisited. And as a consequence of that, no longer does the message go from the communication manager, i.e. the public relations professional, through the media and to the masses, but in fact they're jumping over and bypassing the media. And as a consequence of that, I suggest that the audiences themselves be being empowered. What you find in essence then is that some of our most seminal or most foundational theories need to be revisited, and we've heard a little bit of that. I think, for example, about the concept of gatekeeping, where news must go through a gate, but if we're bypassing that and jumping over the gate, then all of a sudden this seminal theory needs to be looked at again. The same can be said for McCombs and Shaw's work back in 1972 on agenda setting, suggesting that the media don't tell us what to think, but tell us what to think about. And if we think about that just a little bit, I'd suggest to you that it isn't the media only, or it isn't traditional media. The two-step flow certainly is changing, because the concept of an opinion leader is no longer a prominent politician, a prominent journalist, a prominent businessman, but in fact an opinion leader may be an individual blogging, going peer-to-peer. So there's some empowerment shifts that are happening there. An interesting thing that's going on in the U.S. media, and I wish I could speak to it better here, and I'm just not as sure. But what we're finding is that there's always been this concept, this claim of a liberal bias in the traditional U.S. media. And the data on that, as I've looked at them, support it in some ways. Without getting into a discussion there, let me suggest to you, though, that there's a number of relatively conservative or independent thinkers who are actually quite glad that traditional media are being bypassed, because it empowers them, i.e. a conservative organization, to bypass the biased media and move directly to audiences. We look certainly then, as we move from a micro to a macro level, we look at governmental systems and the changes that are happening certainly, and the opportunity we have for a robust sharing of information that equates itself with a healthy society. The seventh point, and I'll be finished up in just a minute, is one that I raised in my paper, where I gave a small anecdote, a small story about a child starving in Haiti. I was struck to learn that Haiti is the only country in the Western Hemisphere in which people still starve to death. And when I thought of the work in Haiti, I gave a scenario about a pop-up advertisement that came up. And pop-up advertisements are relatively new in the larger spectrum of things. And I talked about the ability of a Photoshop or a computer program that could alter an image. And so if that image of the starving child reaches the right person at the right time,